Hey ya, this is Sydney with Let's Get Through It Astrology. I'm here to take you through the astrological weather day by day for a bit of play-by-play. My intention is to give you a little bit of a vibe check so that you can show up on planet Earth as your very best self. I'm recording this from beautiful and sunny Oakland, California, so note that all of the times mentioned in this podcast are in Pacific Standard Time, so you'll want to adjust for wherever you are in the world. Okay, let's get through it. All right, friends, I am here to talk about the time of March 4th through the 10th, 2026. That is a Wednesday through the Tuesday, Mercury's day through Mars's day. And we are still very much, I think, in the middle of eclipse season. Now, the eclipse has just happened today, this morning, as I am recording. I am recording this at noon on the dot on March 3rd. There was a eclipse at 3:33 a.m. or 3:37 a.m., something around there, which was the full moon in Virgo. And I'm not going to talk about that because I talked about that in the previous podcast. So if you're curious about that, you can go back in time into the recordings. But yeah, again, we have another, I would say, a big week, probably not as explosive as last week, especially as we have now, at least the US has entered into a war. It's just so unfortunate that we continue to perpetuate cycles of grief and harm collectively as human beings. And I'm so grateful for astrology, at least giving us indications of when those things could potentially pop off. So, it's like good news, bad news bears. A lot of really rough, weird, horrible things are happening in the world. And yet we can still use this beautiful tool as a way to navigate forward because everything changes, everything has cycles. And if we are alive and breathing on this planet, we have to continue to move through our days. So that's my intention, is to get us through this week. I'm trying a different tactic too around how I'm doing this, trying to write up a little bit more ahead of time instead of just shooting from the hip. And so hopefully that brings some clarity, which is honestly kind of funny considering that it is Mercury retrograde in Pisces. But that Mercury retrograde is very closely sextiling my 10th house lord, my Mercury. So I'm guessing that the reimagining and re-envisioning how I do this is on the table for me. So hopefully this works. And if you are into it, I would love for you to tell me. Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe, all of that good stuff. I am open for clients, though my window for taking clients is a little bit slimmer as my work in the world, all of the work that I do is increasing exponentially, which is a good thing to a certain extent. And hopefully that just brings me more money because I also have to eat and live. And I can't do just astrology for the good of my heart. I love seeing my returning clients, and it's been a joy to be able to do that work. Anyways, okay, so we are in the midst of Mercury retrograde. As a refresh, we need to remember that Mercury will not be going direct until March 20th. So we just need to remember all of the words, right? Rethink, reprocess, re-envision, reimagine, reclaiming our voices in certain ways. This is a time to go inward, especially around our cognitive practices. Everything having to do with technology, transportation. Certainly, we need to slow down. We could find ourselves having to send the email twice, have the conversation twice. All of that is on the table for Mercury retrograde. But we have dealt with many Mercury retrogrades in our lives, and so we know slowing down is a good thing. Okay. Biggest transits of the week. If you hear some noise in the background, it's just because my sweet baby dog Blue is trying to get himself comfortable as I go through the podcast. So, March 4th, we are going to have Venus in Pisces, sextile Uranus and Taurus, and that's going to be around 27 degrees, 49 minutes. So, it's called the 28th degree. So, if you have some planets around that 28 degrees, give or take 3 degrees in either direction, especially in earth, especially in water, this could be bring up some nice change for you. Gentle, flowing change, new directions. March 5th, we're going to have the sun in Pisces, trine retrograde Jupiter in Cancer. This is a nice, beautiful, flowing aspect that should bring some good feeling. Though I do know that we are living in the world that we're living in now. So it could be a little bit of a balm in the midst of chaos. On March 6th, we're going to have Venus's ingress into Aries. This is when she goes into the sign of her detriment. She's doing things a little bit differently, right? The Venus in Aries is definitely kind of that solo love, assertive lover, very adventurous. Venus in Aries can be a little selfish, very independent, loves being on top. Venus in Aries always comes first. It's a bold lover, impulsive, quick to jump into things and amorous situations, attracted to acts of bravery and courage and confidence. I also think that Venus in Aries is a spicy Aries, like some excitement in how it goes about doing relationships, certainly. But Venus, is a planet of union and joining, and it's in a solo sign. So there's a lot of like self love stuff going on here instead of the like all encompassing Venus and Pisces thing. We went from exaltation, Venus and Pisces, to a sign of her detriment where she's not as comfortable expressing these solo ways of being the lover that she wants to be. Okay. March 7th, we're going to have Mercury retrograde conjunct the sun. And we're also going to have Venus conjunct Neptune. This feels like there's information, there's new vision, there's dreams, there's, amorous feelings and messages. I think it'll feel like a bigger day. On the 8th, we are going to have Venus conjunct Saturn. That's a good aspect for business and, business negotiations. It's a new cycle between Venus and Saturn. We will not have them meeting again for another year. So this is, in the early part of the week, Venus is closing down the old cycle with Saturn. And then once we get to the 8th, Venus is starting a new cycle with Saturn. And then on March 10th, we're going to have Jupiter in Cancer stationing direct. So Jupiter will become very prominent and is very, very slow right now. And so, themes around legality, themes around other cultures, duh, we know that's happening. Themes around spirituality, religion, philosophy, all of that, I think, will be more prominent throughout the whole week. Okay. So those are the biggest transits. I'm going to go through day by day. Please remember these things are in timestamps in the descriptions of whether it is the audio podcast or the video so that you can go to a certain day, especially if you have something special going on, so you can kind of get a feel of what you're going to be traversing, or at least what people around you are going to be traversing. We also need to remember that all of these aspects, not all of them are for you because not all of these things are happening in your chart. It depends on where the planets are and their degrees. So, this is where we can have a whole bunch of people having a really terrible day, and another person is just like cooking with grease and having the best time. And that is the beautiful bloomin' onion of humanity. And the very cool thing about charts is that it really does reflect everybody's individual experience. So if you are interested in knowing about your individual experience with these planets in the sky doing what they're doing, that's when you would hire somebody like me, an astrologer, to tell you what's up and on the horizon. Okay, that was enough of a pluggy spiel. All of the charts on the screen are going to be in Regiomontanus, which is the chart system that I use specifically because I'm really interested in those really sensitive house casts. However, We're not going to be talking about house cuts during this podcast because I can't, because it has everything to do with the different places that people are. My charts are up for Oakland. So all of these times that I say are going to be in Pacific Standard Time. Okay. Now, let's get into March 4th, which is Wednesday. Wednesday is Mercury's day. Mercury is retrograde in Pisces. Sus condition, right? Um, Fortunately, still co-present with Venus, hopefully lending some help, being the exaltation lord, the highest minded ideals of Mercury. But he is combust, so there's things that are hidden. He is retrograde, so he's going backwards, he's going within. This expression isn't so external. And he's also in detriment and false. He doesn't have all the tools he needs to do what he does, right? Mercury days are good for communication, but I would say that, this Mercury day is a good time for going within and figuring out how we're feeling about things and potentially how we want to communicate those things going forward. Okay. So I think for Wednesday, we're going to be emotionally kept on our toes. The moon is going to go from worried, nitpicking Virgo into compromising, relationship focused Libra around 10:55 a.m. And the biggest aspect of the day is Venus sextile Uranus, which is going to shift relationships, love, financial matters in a way that brings endings to various situations, because this is a last quarter sextile, in order to prepare Venus to go it on her own when she enters Aries on Friday. So, deciding on a love that is uniquely your own and brings the connection you truly desire so that when you need to assert your independence, you can do so freely. Enjoy these last days of Venus and Pisces, though in the last degrees of Venus and Pisces, there's a winding down, there's a wrapping up, there is a letting go of things that, no longer needs as it is going to carry on to the other sign. The moon in Libra has confrontational aspects with Saturn and Neptune. So feeling overwhelmed and frankly a bit down in the dumps, being met with limitation, unfortunately. And this is going to be because of the opposition. So this can bring up relationship issues, and definitely feeling overwhelmed. We're going and also feeling limited, like really limited. Like, you know, I don't get to compromise in the way that I want. You're, holding the line, and I don't love that. Saturn is not in the greatest condition in Aries. And we're going to allow ourselves to get to the emotional root of the issue in the evening with Moon trine Pluto. So this is an intense need to connect, get clarity, and this pull might be too strong to ignore. And just allow yourself to feel deep. This is also pretty social, so this can also be around relationships and how we do friendships, understanding more about why we are the way we are, why we do the way that we do things. March 5th is Thursday. Thursday is Jupiter's day. Jupiter's retrograde in Cancer. We are still emotionally expanding internally, having a greater understanding of what's going on inside of us. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, and Jupiter days are really good for broadening our horizons, being adventurous, learning something new. Venus is anaretic today. So Venus is at that 29th degree. It's about to flip over into Aries. Because Venus is anaretic, there's a critical nature to this. So I think that matters of women, and especially those who have suffered or endured abuse, may come up today, especially today, as if they haven't been in the news. The last degree of Pisces is an ending and therefore a release. Venus is conjunct the fixed star Shyat. So some people pronounce it like sheet, which sounds very close to the naughty word. And this is a disaster star. So this speaks of tidal waves and storms. So again, I think like the news around women is like pretty intense. The star has the nature of Mars and Mercury. So disastrous information about women, I think, is something about that. And maybe it's how women have behaved in the e files. And I'm talking about the women that have perpetuated abuse and not necessarily the women who have endured it. Though I think it also brings up the disastrous ways that women have endured abuse as well. The biggest aspect of this day is the sun in Pisces trining its own ruler, that retrograde Jupiter in Cancer. And so this brings the flow, confidence, and emotional expression. So this is a creative, intuitive, emotional trine. It just kind of, I think it just helps us feel like we're open, open, open. The moon in Libra is seeking harmony, balance, connection, but it doesn't quite seem to get it with the other planets because it's forming stressful, anxious, and overcompensating connections, including a shocking and destabilizing sesqui-square to Uranus. So, in all the ways that the moon in Libra is like, hey, I want to connect, there's something here that doesn't let it fully do that, right? We're going to make emotional adjustments from a place of seeking both sides and resist emotional angry outbursts when the moon forms a sesqui-square to Mars and then a quincunx to Mercury in the evening. So I think the energy starts to, or the emotional intensity starts to crank up as we go into the late evening or late afternoon into the evening. And it could be that we're being asked to make emotional adjustments to the information that is coming forward, but we need to remember that Mercury is retrograde. And these ideas are still in the process of being renegotiated. So, in all of the ways that we still are dealing with this Mercury retrograde, we need to go, I think, inside, within, especially, and also with the Jupiter retrograde still just for a little bit longer to go within and really figure out what's going on with us and how we're feeling about things, to take that breath before we push out and go forward. March 6th is Friday. Friday is Venus's day, and Venus has just gone into the warrior sign of Aries. So this is also ruled by Mars and Pisces. So Aries is domicile ruler is Mars. That Mars and Pisces, the exaltation ruler is Venus. And so it kind of gives this lending. I think there has a lot to do with like faith and passion and how Venus and Aries is going forward. It's like, I know what to do and I know how to get it sort of thing to it. Venus is in a sign of conflict. She's in her detriment. She doesn't have everything she needs. And I think she's flying off of the seat of her pants. So she went from, Venus and Pisces, which can be the sign of the mourner, into the sign of the fighter. In Aries, Venus behaves boldly, going after what she wants. She comes first. She wants adventure. She wants newness. Venus and Aries can behave a bit selfishly, which can be an overcorrection from being in Pisces, which is just like, I'm trying to merge with you, be all encompassed in you, and roll around in you. Venus and Aries is like, I'm out, I'm doing my own thing. Venus and Aries is risk taking and impulsive. I think you holler vibes with like a little bit of like very little steam to finish once it like moves into the house with it's like, yeah, I want this. And then it's like, oh, now I have to play house with you. Oh, I don't love that. Um, this is a Venus that isn't passive. This is a Venus that hits on you directly. No flirting is necessary. But the directness may come off as like romantic or bold, something that we consider fresh and new. The moon in Libra, in the path of fire, by the way, is ruled by this direct and passionate Venus in Aries. So it's really like, I want to connect and I'm going to take that action. But it is in the path of fire, like I just said, which could mean that nothing quite right comes out of the way that the moon goes after what it needs to feel secure and safe, right? In addition to this, the moon has oppositions with Eris and Chiron, and so I think that makes us feel sensitive to our hurt feelings, and discord is seeping into our relationships. The opposition is a relationship aspect, and Eris is the goddess of discord. So let's, know that that's coming up. In the afternoon, the moon in Libra has Antisha with Mars, which is like a secret conjunction, and they understand each other, right? Which could have us feeling more passionate about our desires than normal. And the quincunx, though, brings sudden emotional adjustments that are necessary. In the evening at 8:01 p.m., the moon is going to enter intense, passionate, and extremely complex sign of Scorpio. Themes of purging, obsession, and investigation come into our emotional matters. Still waters run deep with the moon in Scorpio. Now we're feeling really, really intensely and very, very passionately, and it's all being held inside. It's not necessarily being let out. The moon's remaining aspects of the day are quincunxes to Venus and Neptune, demanding an emotional adjustment to what we need or value and dream of. And the sesqui squares to the Sun and Mercury make for emotional frustrations that will not have resolution tonight. They just won't, and that's okay. Just feel the feelings. Maybe don't take it out on other people. Be careful of trying to control everything around you. Control is an illusion, and it may get you into a sea of emotional conflict. March 7th is Saturday. Saturday is Saturn's day. Days, I always tell people, take care of your business, balance the checkbook, clean your gutters, do your chores, do your errands, make sure that the foundations of your life are resorted into some sort of order so that you can go into this next week feeling like, okay, I know what's up, right? Mercury's retrograde cazimi is with the sun at 3:01 a.m. So information coming to light again, something from the past, that retrograde notion, something needs to be re-examined here, and it's lit up by the sun. We have to remember with the cazimi, Mercury is something's being burned away, for it's a purifying moment so that Mercury can go back over old territory with, perhaps, I would say, some new understanding or clarity, the sun, of how it wants to go back in order to go forward again. So, Mercury is a planet of children, and Pisces can signify suffering. I do wonder what is going to be revealed when it comes to the Epstein files. So I think there's something there for that. The cazimi can bring a point of clarity to the information and discussions that are being had, if only briefly, so that they can be re-examined and learned after the conjunction is over. Perhaps it learns a new way to feel, a renewed sense of compassion and sensitivity. Almost simultaneously, Venus in Aries is going to conjoin Neptune, inflaming our passions and needs and dreams and illusions. It is a very romantic conjunction. It's very lover girl, but maybe it's the illusion that you can do all of this self-love all on your own. I don't need no man. I can do it all on my own. Um, Venus Neptune conjunction can be artistic risk taking, which could be very exciting. Um, but, Venus Neptune contacts can be clouded by judgment, clouded by rose colored glasses, and maybe clouded in matters of love. So we just need to keep that in mind as well. Venus is now in between Saturn and Neptune, which traditionally doesn't mean anything, but I think looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's kind of besieged, is in dangerous territory of being confused and maybe making some difficult and challenging decisions where it doesn't have all the information or it needs to act in a different way. This feels like a liminal space for the planet of relationships, money, and values. So there's cycles ending and cycles beginning. Feels very in betweensy. Venus, Saturn, and Neptune are all parallel to Eris, which brings risk taking and strife into play as well. The moon's last aspect of the day is in the morning. So all of this stuff is happening in the morning. It's kind of nuts, actually. Um, and it's a challenging square to Pluto. So this brings up emotional confrontations that feel like power plays, internally explosive feelings, being forced to emotionally react in some way that you are not comfortable with. This is uncomfortable, emotionally uncomfortable, protective, controlled, controlling. Um, and we don't get to smooth out those edges for a couple of days. So let's be aware of that. March 8th is Sunday. Sunday's aspect for the moon are some of the best of the week, actually. Flowing trines very early in the morning, inviting sensitivity and intuition and feeling a way through what we're going through, right? Sundays are for creativity, for trying to just be. Like when I think of the sun and, it's creative, identity, it's like just be, right? Social, be connected. The sun in Pisces is connected to everything. It's a spiritual sign, certainly. And so maybe you just try to connect with whatever your way of being spiritual is. The biggest aspects of the day are two: Venus conjunct Saturn. This is going to be the perfect conjunction, which is going to begin a new year cycle around the business and karma of love and money. Serious business, love is. So, how are we uh how are we engaging in business at this time? How are we using our money? What are we investing in? What are we investing in relationships, whether it's our relationship to ourselves, as well? You know, everything with the Venus Saturn conjunction, there's a seriousness about it. There's something about reputation here, trying to establish new business around money. I think this is a new cycle for financial matters as well. The second biggest aspect is retrograde Mercury trine Jupiter. So information from the past is flowing, learning and growing through conversations and information. This is creative. This is poetic. Sit down and write in your journal for this aspect. I think that's really nice. And maybe we write in our journal about how we want to utilize value, utilize money, how we want to establish relationship going forward for the next year. Information and philosophy flow. This is a right brain, left brain simpatico thing. I think that this is really, there's a lot of information flowing. However, I don't necessarily think that all the information is true. And so this is when we need to know that while information is just abound, we are also in the age of misinformation. And so with that easy flow, we're like, yeah, there's more, there's more, there's more. I think we need to remember to do our research. But both of these aspects, the Venus conjunct Saturn and retrograde Mercury trine Jupiter, they bode mostly well for things around business, even considering all of the conditions of these planets. Negotiations and deals of a different matter, or using different resources, or doing things in a different way. We have to remember that there are problematic conditions for Mercury, Venus, and Saturn. So it's like you win some, you lose some. Like, yes, you can make the negotiation, you can sign the deal, you can do all of that, but I don't think any of it's going to feel traditional or look traditional by any means. And certainly we are in very untraditional times, or maybe we are in traditional times considering that we're just repeating cycles, but that is a whole other thing to go through. The pile up of the water and fire planets says steam. There's also like a big overload of planets in one hemisphere of the chart, right? And we're still not grounded. There's still no, like, this is the reality of what we're dealing with. I think we're still in like a lot of emotional reactions and actions being taken that have not landed yet. So remember that. Just think steam. It's steamy time in the sky. Okay. Day, March 9th is the moon's day. We have the moon in Sag. And actually, earlier in the morning, the moon will be finishing up her time in Scorpio and has a surprising, suddenly shocked, emotionally erratic, and unpredictable aspect. And this is the moon opposite Uranus and Taurus, very early in the morning at 4:28 a.m. I wouldn't be surprised if you just bing awake 4:28 a.m. around that time, Pacific Standard Time, where you're just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm up. I guess that's what's going on. Um, and the I think it might set off some things that are eclipsy as we're winding down the eclipse time, if only because the moon is going to trigger the eclipse that happened on the 17th of February from the other side, um, from another square. So there could be something that comes up. And we know that with the activation of the eclipse, that was usually, or it has been acts of war that are shocking. So let's see. The moon can be a little bit of a trigger, not as much as Mars, but it is there. The moon is going to shift into Sagittarius, which is like, don't fence me in, get me out of here. I gotta go. I gotta adventure. This is gonna be around 8:30 a.m. So this is definitely a vibe shift. The shift into Sagittarius will immediately get us some good working aspects to Neptune, right? So this is bringing in the vision and the adventurous dream. We're gonna get a trine to Saturn, which is good for working on the tasks at hand, and also a trine to Venus, which is now separating from Saturn, so it's on the other side of it, which brings hopefully a passionate and playful, brave vibe to the room, right? I'm hoping that that trine to Venus after the trine to Saturn kind of lets us flow into something that feels better, feels more free. The Sag and Aries fire trine to me says go for a hike, go adventure, go look out into the great beyond and imagine what is coming forward. How do you want to envision your future? Like look over the vista, right? With the moon in Sagittarius, it is getting a superior sign based square from Jupiter that is very slow and about to station and also is the ruler of the moon. So I think it's already egging on this out of bounds moon. So it really wants to just has a lot of energy to it. Encouraging it to go further than it's ever gone before could make our emotional responses a little bit hyphy, a little bit too much. Really really too much because it's out of bounds. Also, the moon shifting into Sag will now immediately have it applying to a square with Mars, which brings irritation, anger, passion, the need to cut things off and to make changes and to do things. But I think that passionate anger drive is going to push us to doing something more than we should. So we need to learn some restraint here, and also because it is a mutable square, we need to remain flexible even when we're angry. The moon is in the bends today, which is in between the nodes, squaring the nodes. It's in kind of ominous, dangerous territory. But to me, it's like there's something important about the moon. It's being presented with this decision. Like, do I go into the past or do I go into the future? How do I integrate, you know, moon things, how I've been nurtured, how I've been taken care of, how I nurture myself, that presents a question, do I go boldly into the future or do I frustrate myself with the past? It's key here, for, oh, I would say most of this day to integrate our emotional understanding of where we are and what we believe and what we're willing to stand up for. And I think this will help us in our evolution. The biggest aspect of the day is Venus sextile Pluto, which brings intensity, passion, and how we approach relationships, money, and even community because the Aquarius thing. Venus is making a flowing change here, just happily changing. I think it feels social, um, But I also think that there's an invitation from Pluto to release an idea about the nature of Venus in Aries. And it could be, you know, uh, some of the independent vibes, like, I don't need you, I don't need community, I don't need any of this, and instead invites it to come in and to get deeper. It might be that there's a shift in the Venus and Aries as fear of being vulnerable in relationship, or how it allows for compromise, which a Venus and Aries is not really necessarily too keen to do. So allow for the deepening of our love nature, because in the end, love is all there is. March 10th is Tuesday. Tuesday is Mars's day. For Mars's day, we find Mars within 3 degrees of the North Node. And whenever we have a planet very close to the North Node, it makes that bigger, hungrier to exhibit its nature. So we have to be on the lookout for Mars things, military, aggressive actions, and especially taken under the guise of religious or holy wars. And it's like propaganda and illusions around that. Um, and I think we need to be on alert for the entire next week around extreme aggressive actions taken on behalf of the belief in some god or another. And that's because Mars is going to be within the conjunction to the North Node for this whole week. Because Mars is, slower than the moon. So the moon comes and hits it, it's like quick, bada bing, bada boom. But with Mars, it takes a little bit longer to do all of that. The Mars conjunction with the North Node is inflaming Mars. And the actions of Mars pushing us in this direction, this North Node in Pisces. And I wonder if it's waking us up even more and aggressively waking us up to like, wow, actually, we are all connected. Anything that you do over there impacts everything over here and everywhere. We keep thinking that, oh, like we're US is dropping bombs over there and it's not going to impact us, or some stupid people think that. And so I think that that is not the case, and I think that there are repercussions that we are being made aware of because of these aggressive actions that are being taken. We are forcing ourselves into a new direction here. And again, decisive actions taken in the name of faith or religion. Funnily enough, I woke up today. I'm filming this on Tuesday, March 3rd, to like a whole bunch of things, apparently like generals telling US soldiers that they are now fighting a holy war. And it's like, so I think this becomes far more predominant later on in the week. So the moon is going to actually square the nodes, now moving towards the north node through, hmm, though the resolution node is that South node in Virgo. It's asking for the release of perfectionist tendencies. And I think that the moon squaring the nodes going towards the north node is asking for us to have a little faith. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know though. The moon's aspects today are sensitive, frustrated, and anxious, which may encourage us to say things that we don't mean. So keep that in mind. The moon is very out of bounds today. Um, Try to be emotionally flexible. And we don't understand that our outbursts, like our emotional outbursts, are how we are trying to find that freedom, find that expansiveness to go out into the great beyond. I don't think we quite know the impact that those actions might have on other people. So just keep that in mind. The biggest aspect of the day is Jupiter's station direct at 15 degrees, which is going to make Jupiter very strong in the sky. So things around faith, philosophy, laws, legality, and religion. Again, with all of that North Node, Mars, Pisces, Mars and Pisces is like the spiritual warrior. Fight for your faith, fight for your religion. Um, Fight for your spirituality, fight for your belief. And now we have Jupiter's station as well. There's a lot, I think, around religion
And like, what are we fighting for? And there's people that want to trigger this like quote unquote holy war. And we want religious freedom. We want the freedom to not believe, to not have this forced down our throats. There's a lot coming up, and I think that it will very much be predominant, especially on this day. Also, because the moon is going to hit a critical degree of 17 degrees Sag while Jupiter is stationing direct. So that moon in Sag is ruled by that Jupiter, which is stationing, like, and then we have Mars, the North Node, which is ruled by that Jupiter that is stationing. Everything having to do with faith and religion is like, I think, on high alert today. So maybe this is when we get some news about various laws and legal actions that are being taken or illegal actions. And maybe even these legal actions that especially impact women. Um, it makes me think of the SAVE Act, actually. Uh, so now with Jupiter stationing direct, we had this emotional expansion happening internally, and now it starts to pour out. The cup overfloweth. Emotional growth is now directed outwards. Like, what did we learn? And now can we go forward? You know? Um, and I think that this will ultimately impact how we feel about going forward into the future. And yeah, there's so many things ruled by that Jupiter in Cancer stationing direct that it would be very interesting to see nothing come up at this day, especially on this day, about everything having to do with belief, religion, laws, legality, homeland security, all of that. So be careful out there. Take care of yourselves. Um, the eclipse vibes are still active. So just know that we're still in that space for a little bit more time. And let me know how you feel about the shorter time and the more concise written way that I'm doing this podcast this time. And I hope that you are all well. I'm open for readings and I will talk to you later. Okay, bye.
Hey, thank you for listening to today's Astro Weather with me. I'm Sydney. As a reminder, I'm always open to seeing both new and my beloved returning clients. My website is ddastrology.com. That is D as in dog, astrology.com to check me out and just click the email buttons in order to schedule with me. If you're into a more conversational feel with your podcast and content, I have a podcast called BS Astrology with my fellow Mercurial Mommy Bender, and we put out episodes every Sunday for the week. Just search BS Astrology on YouTube or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts, including Spotify, Audible, and more. Have a good day.